Hello everybody, it's Greendot 319. How are we all doing? Enzo Ferrari apparently once said that America's only supercar was the World War II Jeep, and I don't think he was wrong. There's lots of people who want to build these little vehicles, and I think as time moves on, it's going to get slightly more difficult to do so. We're already seeing a reduction in the amount of good parts that are available to us, especially original parts. The other thing as well is that petrol, I reckon, is going to become a little bit more difficult to get hold of in the way that we're used to in the next couple of years. As we move towards hybrid and electric vehicles, petrol, I reckon, is going to start to be viewed a little bit more differently. Perhaps the tax for it will increase, and then the supply will decrease as well. So just driving it around and having the freedom that we have to enjoy these vehicles is going to become more difficult and more unusual. So if you want to get out and about now, I think now is the time to get building a Jeep and start enjoying yourself while you still can. So having built two of these things now, there are 5 things that I think that could really help improve your chances of success and creating successful Jeep restoration. So that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at my top 5 tips for making a successful Jeep restoration. So join me as we work our way around this vehicle and let's chat about some of these Jeepy things. Number 1. It's going to cost a hell of a lot more than you think, and it's going to take a hell of a lot more time than you think, and it's going to be a hell of a lot more difficult than you think. If you've never restored a vehicle like I hadn't when I first worked on my GPW, you look at an old Jeep and you think, there's not much to it. There's an engine, there's a chassis, there's some wheels and a steering wheel. What do? Rip the engine out, rebuild it, put it all back together. Easy peasy. How long is that going to take? How much is that going to cost? Okay, well, the answer is when you want to start going into it is a hell of a lot more than you think. So the first thing to think about is don't underestimate how hard it is to rebuild a vehicle, okay? There's a lot to them. On the surface, the problem with humans is that we don't know what we don't know. So when we haven't worked on something before and we haven't rebuilt something, we don't know how difficult it is to do it. So we underestimate how long it's going to take and how much it's going to cost. And the problem with this is there's always unforeseen things that you can't think about or imagine. You go to buy a Jeep, you go and have a look at it, the axle seems fine, it drives, it goes up and down, perfect. The problem is, so you think you can just put that to the side. The problem is what you'll find is when you start to take it apart, perhaps there's a missing tooth in there or something like that, or there's just too much play in there or what have you. So you end up taking the axle apart and rebuilding it, all unforeseen costs and time. So the first thing to think about then is don't underestimate how difficult it is going to be to restore one of these. It is not going to be easy. You're going to spend nearly every single waking moment researching, taking things apart, annoying your wife, annoying your family, building carburetors on tables, blasting stuff, taking stuff to blasters, taking it back. That sort of stuff is time you don't take into account. You know, oh, I've actually got to go and take the engine to the machinist and bring it back and maybe go there a couple of times to check it out. The body tub, you know, I'm going to have to go and inspect it and things like that and move it backwards and forwards. All hidden costs you don't think about when you think about restoring a vehicle. Those are the underlying costs, and we always underestimate them. So if you think it's going to be simple to do one of these and you can knock it off in a year and you'll be out riding around and enjoying yourself in no time at all, just bear in mind that it's not going to be that straightforward. It's not a bad thing, that's a good thing, okay, because you can take more time doing it and enjoying it, but just be aware of it. If you've got a very limited budget and a very limited time scale, it ain't going to happen. It's just going to cause you a lot of worry, a lot of concern, and stress your relationship with your family as well as you work on the Jeep when you should be doing other things. So bear that in mind. Number 1, it's going to take more time, it's going to take more money, and it's going to be more difficult than you expect. That's a big one, and it goes for all vehicles, not just Jeeps. So my second top tip for Jeep restoration success is to have a budget and stick to it. This might seem like quite a simple thing, but it's actually really important. What you don't want to do is fall into the big trap that loads of people restoring classic vehicles do, is to buy it, find out, do a bit of work to it, find out it's become too expensive, and then just stick it in your garage and not complete it. You know, there's no point in starting a project if you can't finish it. You won't be able to get out here and enjoy it. So having a budget is really, really important. Now we're quite spoilt in the Jeep world because there's a lot of reproduction parts and still a fair amount of good original stuff available to us. Of course, the good original stuff is now becoming very expensive and more difficult to get hold of, but it's still out there. So what you're able to do then is to decide, based upon your budget, what sort of Jeep you want to build and what sort of parts you want to use. Now the problem is with some of the reproduction stuff is it goes on a scale from being really good to really awful. And the only way you're going to find out about this is to go online, search the forums, search Facebook and look for the good stuff, see what stuff is not working and what stuff is. Now if you go to a good dealer, you can often get hold of good stuff which will keep you safe as well. You know, if it's a good person who's got a good returns policy, you know, you're going to be able to create a good Jeep at the end of it, which is obviously good. Of course, I was very lucky when I built this Jeep. Money wasn't an object, which was fantastic, so I was able to spend as much as I wanted and to go to the top level, which is what I wanted to show you guys when I did this. Now, unfortunately, I'm not quite in that situation anymore, partly due to spending it all on this vehicle behind me. But the thing about that is that you don't need to worry if you start off with, you know, at the lower end and using more reproduction parts and things like that. That's fine, because the great thing about a Jeep is it's all accessible and fairly easy to work on. Take, for example, this blackout fender light here on the side. To start off with, I used a reproduction there. I wasn't able to find a good original or the good original I wanted to use on it for the right price. But as time went on, one became available and I purchased it. Great thing about a Jeep is you just rip it off, put it on, and away you go. So now I have a nice NOS original fender light on there instead of the reproduction. And of course, that's what you can do as well. If you start off at a lower level, you can take bits off as time goes on, and as you find original bits, or as you have the time to restore bits, take the bits off you had on the Jeep, sell them, make some money back, and then put on other bits as well. So you can constantly improve it. It also keeps things interesting as well, of course. If the Jeep is done and finished and it sits there, then you haven't got anything to tinker with. Not that you're ever going to run out of things to tinker with a Jeep, but it's great because there's always something to look for, something to search for, and something to improve. So that's my second top tip then. Have a budget and stick to it. At the end of the day, you'll be able to make a better Jeep, and you'll be able to keep your sanity as well and some of your bank balance intact. Yes, peeps, we're rattling through these tips. Now, if you're enjoying this content and you haven't perhaps been on my YouTube channel before and seen what I do, have a look around through some of my other videos as well. You know, we cover lots of stuff with this good old vehicle, rebuilding it, playing with them, doing different things as well. So loads of stuff to look at there. If you're not subscribed as well, make sure you subscribe. We're building those subscribers up. They're very important to YouTubers, of course, so you get recurring views. You know, that helps me get it out there to more people and teach more people about Jeeps. And if you really like Jeeps as well, and you really like my content, you could join me on Patreon as well for just only $1 a month. Just helps contribute to the petrol money for this and doing stuff so that I can bring it to you as well as it becomes more expensive to work on. So I really appreciate that if I manage to earn your subscribe, your like, or perhaps even your Patreon as well. So join me and we can share more with Jeeps and have more fun. Okay, peeps, so we've talked about the boring stuff then. It's more difficult than you think. It costs a lot more and you need to budget for it as well. Okay, the next important thing, so number 3 of my tips then, is that you need to pick the best vehicle basis that you can when it comes to your restoration. It's really tempting, isn't it, when you see something come up on Craigslist or eBay or something like that for, you know, a couple of $1,000s. It looks great. You can go over there today and pick it up and bring it home and away you go. Very, very tempting thing to do. The problem with that is that the little details are the hardest things to get right, and they take the most amount of money and time. The overall thing is fairly straightforward, but it's the little stuff which is really difficult, okay? And if you can get the Jeep which has enough of the little stuff and the little details, it will make your job so much more simple. And it's really worth holding out to find that really good Jeep, which will make your life a hell of a lot easier. There are still loads of restoration candidates coming up. They're becoming more difficult, they're becoming more expensive, but they are still out there. You know, if you can find a Jeep for say $500, you know, maybe it is a complete basket case, go for it. You know, you can rip bits off it, maybe use it as a donor for working on your Jeep. Bargains are always bargains, but when you're paying a couple of $1,000s, it's often worth holding out for that nice Jeep. So let's have a look around this one and let's try and find some of those little details which are important when it comes to choosing a Jeep. Okay, we're not going to look into whether the vehicle is actually an MB or a GPW. Let's say we know that it's not a CJ, okay? As we come into it, what we want to do, we can save ourselves a lot of money if we've got the correct engine. Wartime engines are expensive, so when you come up to it, make sure that it's got an L head fitted to start off with, so a flat top to the head there, no F head with like a rocker cover here or anything like that. As you come down to it, if you've got Willys and Jeep, that's good, or should I say Willis and Jeep, and if you've got a Ford F under there, that's good as well. One of the ways you can tell though, you know, the post-war might have Willis and Jeep on it as well, but the post-war head here will have a reinforcement ribbing on it as well. So if you see that, you know that it's got a post-war head on it. Of course, that's not the end of the world. A wartime Jeep could have a post-war head put onto it by somebody, so don't write it off just because of that. We want to work out though whether it's got a wartime engine or not. So let's come round here. Easy way to tell that just by staring at it for 5 seconds is down here. We've got this little boss here. Can you see this little raised boss there? The wartime one is quite small. It's only what, 1 inch and a bit, you know, 1.5 inches, whereas the CJ one, the civilian one, comes out a little bit longer here. So if this boss is a little bit longer and comes out, you know it's a CJ, okay? So you can then negotiate your price down if you need to. Having a good L-head CJ engine, depending on what you're doing, is fine as well, but it just depends on the price, doesn't it? So we know we've got a World War II L-head engine in there. That's great. The next thing which is important is whether that engine is cracked or not, okay? If it's running and it doesn't leak and it sounds sweet, you're laughing, that's great. If it's not running and it's just sitting there, say it's stuck or something like that, something that will really affect how much money you have to pour into it is whether it's cracked. And where they crack is down here, okay? Underneath the distributor, you get a vertical crack and you get horizontal cracks down here. The water freezes in the cooling jacket, expands and it blows out the side there. The CJ engines, they put extra reinforcement here which helps prevent that, but the World War II, they hadn't got that far yet. So if it's cracked here, you're going to have to knock some money off or reconsider the vehicle if it's not fantastic overall and it's got a cracked engine as well, you know. Perhaps it's not worth it, perhaps it's worth holding out for a better one. But that's another important one there, is whether it's cracked or not, and it can save you a lot of money. Just looking in the engine bay, because we are here, it's the little details. If you come to it and everything looks like modern wiring and it's missing lots of things, then, you know, it's not going to be worth as much as one which is more complete. Say, the indicators of whether it's complete or not is this horn, if it's still got the horn in the bracket, that's important. This little oil bracket, that's important as well. When you come round, if you see it and it's got an original looking generator on it, an original looking starter motor and the air filter and the fuel filter, then you're onto something good there. If it's still holding on to those, because those often get, you know, removed and thrown away and replaced and what have you, if they're still there, it's a good sign for the Jeep that it's fairly original. You won't often find the original regulator on there, but you know, if you've got that as well, difficult bits, they continue working, they just need restoring usually. So if you've got those bits, it'll save you a lot of money and time. So the more it looks like this under here when you go to buy it, the better it is and the more you'll be laughing. Other important bits as we go around it is whether it's got these combat rims on it rather than the latest CJ rims or something completely different. They're a bit of funny though, because even really nice ones are often rusted up and very difficult to get apart and a huge pain in the bum. So they're not they're not the end of the world wherever it hasn't got them. But little bits on it, you know, having all the correct handles still is nice. And then having things like the gas can, if it's got the gas can and the spare tyre holder as well as the bumperettes and the pintle hook, you know it's probably going to be a pretty good Jeep. Along with as well, if it's a later one, if it's got the trailer socket and things like that. Reflectors, if it's still got the reflectors, even if the actual reflector bit in them is gone, that's really good as well. That'll save you a lot of cash. All those little things, those little add-on bits which get removed, they're indicators that it's a good buy, okay, you know, as long as the rest of it's okay as well. They're just things to bear in mind though. Most Jeeps are going to be pretty rusty and rusted out. They all need a certain amount of work doing to them. So like we're saying with the engine, the more that looks original in here, the better for you in the long run. Getting hold of the seats or having seats can be really good. These split back early seats are very expensive. So if you find good seats like this, you know, you can save yourself a lot of money and people won't think seats are worth too much. So, you know, if you find those, you're saving yourself a hell of a lot. The other thing, of course, is gauges as well. The better the gauges, the better. They're difficult to restore and work on, and they're quite expensive as well because everyone wants the right ones. So if you've got good gauges or restorable gauges, that's always good. And of course our data plates as well. Having the original data plates is fantastic. It adds an air of originality to the vehicle and also gives you a title and things like that, or not a title, but it gives, you know, not a legal title, it gives you a serial number or an identity as well, which is important. So the more complete in here, the better. My fourth top tip then is to save the tub. We never leave a tub behind. Now, reproduction tubs are available. When you get a tub, you know, most of them are going to need work. They get rotted out. They've got these hat channels underneath there full of wood. When Willis were building these and painting them, they used to dip them in an alkali solution to pickle the tub ready to paint it. The problem is, of course, that when you've got wooden channels underneath there, they soak up all that alkali solution. You can't really get it out. So when they were leaving the factories, these tubs were pretty much rotting away from when they were built. So they're all going to need a certain amount of work. Now, the great thing about the Willis Jeep tub is that even when they're completely gone, you know, some will be too far gone. I will fully admit that, okay? And I haven't rebuilt a tub. I get somebody else to rebuild my tubs for me because I don't have the space. So take this with a grain of salt here. But pretty much any tub can be rebuilt. As long as you have this section here, the cowling section, it's still good, you can build a Jeep tub out of it. Have a look at this photo here of one of my YouTube subscribers who sent this to me of the work he's been doing. Look how good that is, you know. He's used his original cowl, but the whole rear section of the Jeep is completely replaced and completely reproduced. So even though he's only been able to use a small amount of the original tub. He's still using some of that tub. And what that creates is like a psychological effect. When you're driving it, you feel as though you're sitting in an original vehicle. You've still got the body, the soul of the vehicle there. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, look, Matt, half of the tub is completely replaced. It's new metal. What difference is that to a complete reproduced tub? Well, the thing about it is that the high quality reproduction Joe's Motorpool panels are so good that they're pretty much a like for like copy of the World War II stuff, whereas the complete body tubs which come to you, their quality is not so great in a lot of places, and the fit is not so great as well. So you can spend a hell of a lot of time working on them, you know, more work perhaps than you would sometimes need to do just to rebuild the tub, just to get the thing to fit on your frame. So there's a bit of a difference between using the really high quality stuff and rebuilding a tub to putting on a complete reproduction one. Okay, Jeep aficionados, we're approaching number 5 of my top tips for success for working on one of these things, and it's a twofer this one. We've got it'll be fine, isn't fine, and don't rush. What I mean by this is you shouldn't be in a rush to build one of these things. They've been sat around for nearly 80 years now waiting for you to bring them back to life, okay? They can wait a few more years as well. There's no point in starting a restoration on one of these with an end event and an end date in sight, because what happens is you just end up rushing and ending up with a worse Jeep than if you're just taking your time and not put that extra pressure on you. As we all know, the best laid plans of mice and men get f***ed up. What you don't want to do then is be always feeling as though there's something looming over you, waiting for you. You want to have this vehicle for a long time. You know, it's had 80 years or nearly 80 years already waiting for you. You want it to go for another 80 years after restoration. It doesn't want to be 10 years, 15 years till it's restored again. We want to go for 80 years again. So just think, if you rush those couple of months when you're building it, how long you'll be regretting that for. Part of that then is it'll be fine, isn't fine, is when you're working your way through your vehicle that you get, you'll be looking at components and you'll be comparing them and working out whether they're okay to use again. Now you have to put some reproduction or new old stock parts or good used parts back in there. And when you're going through them, if you look at something you go, yeah, it's pretty good, it's all right, it's pretty good, it'll go back in there, and you mix it with good new components, you'll always find that the bit you left in there thinking that it was going to be okay comes back to bite you in the butt a few months later when you can hear that noise back in the axle or down in the differential or down in the transfer or the transmission, because that part isn't meshing well or isn't working well, or it's just a little bit too worn with the other bits, and that's the weakest link. What you've done is you've built a weakest link into your Jeep already, and you don't want to be building weak links into the Jeep. However you decide to do it, you should really enjoy working on a Jeep. It's such a great experience, and the end product is so fantastic. You know, you'll be laughing at the end of the day when you're driving around with the sun down and the girls in it and your family and what have you, going out to the pub and having a drink and going to events. It's well worth it. So enjoy it while you're working your way through it. But that's it today, everybody. Hope you enjoy that. Make sure you subscribed and like that and check out some of my other videos. I'll see you next time. Keep on Jeeping.